All right, well, good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to Low Cost Communications, Engagement, and Promotional Tactics. Today's presentation is hosted by Prairie Communicators, which is the North Dakota Professional Communicators Southwest District based in Bismarck. And my name is Jennifer Skay, and I will be moderating this event. And for those of you who aren't familiar with NDPC, our membership is made up of individuals employed in all aspects of communications. We work in businesses, nonprofit organizations, and government agencies, and some are even small business owners or freelancers. All of our members are committed to the advancement of communication professions, the exchange of ideas, and the recognition and encouragement of our organization's membership. Before I turn the screen over to our presenter, Marty, I have a couple announcements for you. Today's meeting is part of a series of statewide virtual meetings open to all NDPC members. These meetings allow our membership to learn from individuals outside their local community. Last month, Valley Marcom, our Northeast District, hosted a digital advertising presentation, a recording of which should be available on our YouTube channel, accessible to members through NDPC's website. Our final virtual meeting on the 2022-23 season will be hosted by Minot area professional communicators featuring Leslie Means, a former TV reporter who edits a Facebook site for moms called Her View from Home. Leslie will talk about her new book, So God Made a Mother. Jill Schramm, if you're able to share more info on that into it or save the date information, please just drop some information in the chat. Some of our districts also have face-to-face events planned for the spring, including Prairie Communicators, hosting a photography workshop in April. The tentative date is April 11th. Watch your email and our group's Facebook page for more information on these upcoming events. Finally, NDPC is looking for members who would like to get more involved in the state level. We have a couple openings on our board that we'd like to fill. We're also working hard on getting Fargo area members together for some face-to-face activities. So if you're interested in getting more involved on a state level or wanting to connect with other members in the Southeast District, I encourage you to reach out to Tammy Fogel, our state president. And then some quick tech reminders. We are using Zoom, obviously, in the meeting today, and you entered with your cameras off and you're currently muted. But because we're using the meeting format, you should be able to turn them on yourself. If you need assistance, just drop a note in the chat. You can also enter comments in the chat or raise your hand if you have a question, and I'll try and monitor those and let Marty know as they come in. The meeting controls, chat, and raise hand are on the toolbar in the lower center of your screen. If you don't see the toolbar, run your mouse over the lower portion of your screen and it should appear. So months ago, when Sarah and Carrie and I were discussing topics for this season, I proposed that we have a session on low-cost promotions. We tossed out some speaker ideas, including Marty, who is one of our newer members of the Bismarck area group. And I'm going to share a little bit about his background before coming to AE2, let him share a little bit about his background before coming to AE2S, which will explain why we thought he'd be a good presenter for this topic. And he's a former state employee. So thank you, Marty, for leading today's discussion. Any additional questions for Marty before we sign off? Or sorry. I will monitor the questions for Marty. I'm going to turn it over to him now.
All right. Thanks, Jen. And thanks, everybody, for taking some time out today. As was mentioned, I am going to give a presentation on some low-cost communications, engagement, and promotional tactics. I don't by any means consider myself an expert in any of these areas, but as I tell you a little bit about my background, you'll see some of the experiences that I have had in my career over the last 20 or so years that we've tried some things, succeeded in some things, failed in some things. So just a little bit about me. I am originally from New Salem, North Dakota. If you're not familiar, that's a small town of about 1,000 people, 30 miles west of Bismarck, Mandan. We are home to the world's largest Holstein cow. And for those of you that don't know, we are working on changing the name of New Salem to Titletown this year because the New Salem Holsteins won their first 9-man state football championship since 1983, and the wrestling team won their first Class B wrestling championship in the program's 60-year-old history. So Titletown USA might be what's on the signs going forward. After New Salem, I attended college for 2 years in Dickinson State University before transferring to Moorhead and getting a degree in mass communications. And from there, moved to the Twin Cities area and entered a career in government communications. In college, my plan was always to be on TV and be a TV reporter, particularly in sports, dreams of being on ESPN someday. But after doing some interning in the television news area, realized that life wasn't for me. So moved out to the Twin Cities to go to grad school and ended up getting a gig in the Anoka County Public Information Office. Had no idea that that would result in a almost 20-year government communications career. From Anoka County, went to the city of Edina. I was the communications director for the southern suburb of Burnsville for about 10 years. And before coming to AE2S, spent 3 years with the city of Victoria, which is a western suburb, as their community and economic development director. And in August of last year, my family and I packed up our things. It was kind of like Beverly Hillbillies, and we moved back after 17 years, all the way back to New Salem. So our kids will be Holsteins, just like Dad is, going to school in New Salem. We picked up a little rural property in that area and are glad to be back in North Dakota, back in small town rural living, and back closer to family. That move was precipitated by a new gig with AE2S Communications. So I've been with the company for just less than a year. This is my first time working in the private sector since delivering Krispy Kreme donuts in college in Fargo. So a little bit of an adjustment coming from an almost 2-decade career as a government bureaucrat, but still work with government clients in my current role on communications, marketing, branding, strategy, economic development, those types of things. So really enjoying the work that I am doing currently. So having worked in government communications for nearly 2 decades, I've really gotten used to trying to do more with less. Those of you that work for government agencies know that budgets are always tight, always asked to do more with fewer resources and fewer dollars. So my presentation today will be some examples and ideas, both from public sector work and some of the things that AE2S Communications is doing for clients on limited budgets. The best things in life still are free, the rest are just too expensive. So one of the first things that I want to talk about, and I think it's one of the most important things that can be done when you're trying to develop an initiative or get feedback about a project, is to go to the people. This is an often overlooked step. I know that sometimes it's scary, especially in today's environment where things are so divisive and things can turn controversial quickly. But in my experience, when you're hosting things like focus groups or vision sessions, town halls maybe start to get a little more on the political side, but some of those smaller group settings, most of the people that attend those types of meetings are there to try to help, even if they don't necessarily agree with what you're trying to talk about. These types of meetings or events, again, are extremely low cost. Some of your time, potentially some snacks and refreshments and maybe some printouts is about it, but you can really get a good pulse of the community or the target audience that you're trying to get your information out to or trying to determine their feedback on a project, especially if they have broad ranging ramifications. When we do focus groups or vision sessions, we do try to limit it to 12 to 14 people. That's usually the sweet spot. If you have too few, you limit the perspective that you're able to achieve. And if you get too many, it starts to get easy for people to sit in the background and not participate. So again, getting out and actually communicating face to face with folks really, I think, is one of the most important things you can do when trying to communicate or engage. As part of that, we typically try to incorporate some interactive activities to get people's minds in the mindset of having these types of broad discussions, high level vision planning things. Some examples of the things that we do to generate that engagement and collect some feedback is we'll typically start with a speed networking introduction. So we'll have everybody in the group partner up and ask, we'll generate 3 questions. What's your name? What organization do you represent? Why are you here tonight? What do you hope to get out of this, etc. Have them interview each other and then introduce the person that they interviewed. It gets them used to speaking freely with someone that they maybe don't know. Again, it gets their mind turning in the direction that we want them to discuss. Some of the other interactive type activities that we've found it successful in these types of settings, on the left is a branding initiative for the city of Burnsville, Minnesota that AE2S did a few years back. This was a senses worksheet. So participants were asked to describe the senses that they experience when thinking about or describing the community. This middle one is an example of a sticky note exercise. This was something we did recently in Hazen, North Dakota for an economic development strategic planning session. We asked people to independently write down their ideas on their sticky note and post them up on the board. And then we can consolidate those ideas into themes and then really open up discussion from there. And on the right is an activity we did just very recently with a project we're working on in northeastern North Dakota for talent attraction. And we asked group members to create a persona of a person that they'd like to see move to the area. That could have been a real person or an imaginary person, age, demographic, do they have a family, do they not? And then tell us what are the things they'd like to show them when if they were to come and check out the area as a potential place to live. All of these are really great ways to collect feedback from the target audience that you are trying to capture with whatever your initiative or your program or activity is. And again, really costs nothing outside of time, maybe some printing, and it's always nice to provide some snacks and refreshments at those types of meetings. So in those types of settings, a focus group or a visioning session, they do need to be a little bit more coordinated. They need to be planned. You need to send out invitations. You need to get participants. So it takes a little bit more legwork on the front end. But you can also have similar engagement with the community by just going to where the people already are. Similar to the sticky note exercise, we like to do these, what we refer to as free speech boards, and set them up at existing events where we know people are already going to be. The left board is a board asking for feedback on a downtown redevelopment project that was done at a ice fishing tournament in Victoria, Minnesota. The right is was part of that branding initiative I mentioned with Burnsville that was set up at one of their park events. This can again help generate that impromptu feedback and engagement from people of all ages. And you don't necessarily have to spend the time coordinating a specific focus group or vision planning session because you're going to where the people are already gathering. Again, similarly, minimal printing costs and time. This can also be done on a smaller scale with smaller poster boards or things set up on a table if you don't have the resources to print large boards like are shown in these examples. At these events, we also like to try to provide some sort of additional interactive option for people to cast their vote or help prioritize things depending on the project that we're working on. You can do them a little more detailed and thoughtful and creative. Like the example on the left is the same ice fishing tournament. We created a help us tackle the downtown West vision and had fish bowls that were associated with different types of development that were being proposed for that area, and asked people to use bobbers or tackle to drop in and cast their vote on those areas. It also gives you an opportunity to start having some conversations. Or it can be as simple as, again, a poster board with some things printed on it and sticky dots, and just ask people to place the dots on the things that they think are important or that they'd like to have explored further. This one on the right is an example of a board we did at a recent Hettinger Chamber banquet. So had about 200 people in attendance, and set up in the room and just had people walk by and again vote and provide their feedback and have some conversations. Before I move on to the next section, does anyone have any questions on going to the people? All right, I will continue. Another relatively inexpensive community engagement tactic that we've seen a lot of success in is selfie boards. You can kind of see some examples of those on the left and right. These were both associated with the Burnsville project that we worked on. Again, these are probably a little less about gathering feedback and more about actually getting engagement on your project or your initiative or community or whatever it is you're trying to promote. Creating these opportunities with some props and some simple poster board type cutouts that people can pick up and take selfies with, take photos, and encourage them to promote and share on social media to be able to spread the word to their networks as well. People seem to like those types of opportunities to be able to do something a little bit unique when they're out at an event. The center image is actually a Snapchat frame that was set up along with this same initiative. I cannot recall off the top of my head exactly what this costs to set up, but I know it was very inexpensive. Essentially, a frame was created within Snapchat. You are able to upload that. You're able to geotag it to a certain location. So at this park event, anybody that was attending and using Snapchat had the opportunity to pull up this filter, use it on their photo, share it to their Snapchat friends. And we had some signs and things encouraging people to do that, along with some of these selfie stations in different areas. And again, that was really meant more for engagement of the branding initiative, get the word out to additional networks that we weren't reaching directly. So speaking of social media, just some tips and things that we've found effective or that I found effective in my previous roles. And I'm guessing a lot of this stuff isn't new to those of you that deal with social media in your daily lives and in your jobs. But just to reiterate some of the simple tips and things, always include images, graphics, or videos. Those types of posts see far more engagement than straight text posts. Algorithms bring image posts more to the top and are seen by more people. And when doing that, try to include people as often as possible. People help the viewer relate to what's going on, or animals. Animals are always huge. I remember a post we did when I was working for Burnsville, and we had a police officer that rescued some baby ducklings from a storm sewer. And I think to date, from the time I left there, that was our most engaged with post ever. And again, very impromptu, wasn't planned, included people doing their jobs, cute animals. Those really spike the engagement. Obviously, short messages are key. Using emojis can sometimes help highlight different eye-catching information, especially if the emoji is relevant to what you're trying to say. And then boosting posts is another great way to inexpensive way to gain additional social media traction and engagement. $20 a month can really increase the engagement you're getting on posts, which again is creating and generating more followers that will be able to see your messages in the future when you're trying to get out important information to folks, or you're trying to promote your organization or your initiative or your project. Some other social media things, especially working in the government sector, that we had a lot of success with, was playing off of existing campaigns, trends, and hashtags, things like Throwback Thursday or Photo of the Day or Monday Motivation. Those are the types of hashtags that people are used to seeing on social media, tend to stop longer, look at more, can highlight your post. We saw additional engagement in those types of posts. Giveaways and contests always generate additional engagement, and those can be as simple as like a coffee mug or a bumper sticker or some piece of branded content for someone who likes or posts or shares or those types of things. There's a million different ways to do those, but they again also tend to increase engagement. And if you're asking people to share, it's again reaching those additional networks. And one of the most fun things, and we did this a lot, especially when I worked for Burnsville, was participating in the social media holidays, things like Talk Like a Pirate Day, Star Wars Day. Today is actually Pi Day. I didn't realize that when I set this slide up that today was going to be Pi Day, but it is. But playing off again those social media holidays that are out there, there's typically multiple every day. So not saying you have to do every single one, but picking out a few of those things and playing off of them with your social media accounts can again really drive engagement. And I just had to share this last one just because I saw it this week for the first time ever and thought that this was super cool. But March 10th, apparently Super Mario Day, Super Mario, see, March 10th. Thought that was extremely clever. I added that one in last minute just because I thought it was cool. Another thing that, again, most of you communications professionals that work with the media are probably well aware of is the importance of establishing positive relationships with the reporters that cover your area, your organization, et cetera. Having those good working relationships with the media can lead to additional unpaid media placements. In my experience, the reporters, whether that be print or television, radio, et cetera, that you have good relationships with, that you're willing to answer questions and be there during the difficult times, they're much more likely to help promote your stories in the good times, the things that you want to get out there. Any of you that are in small communities that have a small community newspaper, pitching stories and press releases to take advantage of that unpaid media can be very beneficial. Even in Burnsville, which was a community of 60,000 people, we had a small local newspaper. They printed 95% of our press releases verbatim. And if there were stories that we wanted them to go deeper on, they were typically open to coming out, and if we'd set up a media event or some sort of pitch towards them. So being able to have those relationships, especially with some of that smaller local media who are typically, like many of us, strapped for resources, are always looking for content. So don't hesitate to use that as a resource. And then leveraging yourself or someone in your organization as an industry expert, that can help if there is a related story related to your industry. They may be more likely to come to you to get your perspective, your broader perspective on the issue or the item, which again helps get the name of your organization or your business out there. We actually did this. I belong to community television professional organization when I worked in the Twin Cities, and really tried to leverage ourselves as the experts on community broadband and community access television and those types of things. So when things were happening in the legislature and other areas, we were often asked to provide comment, which again just promotes your organization further and gets your message out to folks. And then, photos and videos, I think a lot of times, maybe not as much with photos, but with videos, we think that they need to be extremely produced. I've got a note in the slide here. You don't need to be Michael Bay. You don't need to have Michael Bay production values and expensive. That's not the case. All of us have a camera and a video recorder in our pocket that we can take out and use anytime. High quality video, high quality photos. Don't be afraid to use it if you see something out there that's related to your organization or your project or your initiative, or even as random as a police officer saving ducks. If you don't capture that in the moment, you've lost that opportunity. And the worst thing that will happen is you don't have it or you don't use it if you get it. So don't be afraid to use that resource in your pocket to capture those things. People are used to seeing cell phone videos. TikTok is huge right now. Those are all although they're becoming more produced, but are underproduced. The most successful TikTok videos feel authentic. They feel like they're, kind of created impromptu. The more produced type videos don't get that same type of engagement. So just having that with you and trying to capture some of those moments again, and not always feeling the need that any video that you create needs to be overproduced. Scripted, all of those things. Authenticity really rules when it comes, especially on social media, to video. And of course, keep it short. I think the average attention span for social media video is something like less than 8 seconds. So if you don't draw your viewer in the first 3, 4, 5 seconds, you're going to lose them. So it needs to be attention grabbing and short as well. On the right, I've got a list of some free video editing softwares that are out there. I think iMovie is probably the most well-known of those, but there are a number of different apps and things that you can use on your phone or use on your desktop to do some simple editing to videos if you do have some things that you want to edit together. And I'll share this presentation with Jen afterwards so that can get sent out so you can see that list. But video does not have to be expensive.
We have one question, Marty,
sure,
in the chat. The question is, what's your policy on photo releases of people in photos and videos?
So when I worked for city government, we typically took the approach that if we were in a public space, we did not require a specific release. If we knew that we were going to capture video or we were going to capture photos that we were going to use in something, we'd set up sandwich boards that indicated that photos we're going to be taking may be used in city promotional things. Just, like don't enter the area if you don't want your picture taken. We never got any pushback on that. But typically, if it was in a public place at a public event, we weren't super strict or worried about needing to get releases. If we were doing a specific testimonial or we were doing a specific photo shoot with a person or a family, something that was more coordinated in advance, or if it was taking place not at a public event, then we would have a release form that we'd ask to be completed. Does that answer the question?
Yes, thank you.
All right. So just one more note on video. If you do want to put a minimal investment into your videos and video quality, you can get some pretty neat tools for under a couple $100 on Amazon. Having a tripod, either a floor length tripod or even just a tabletop tripod like the one shown here to help stabilize video is something that can help depending on what content you're trying to capture and what you're trying to get. If you are doing interviews or trying to get testimonials, having just a really cheap clip-on microphone that plugs into the bottom of your phone can really help with your audio quality. And then lighting, I think, is again very underlooked, but extremely important when it comes to video. A bad camera with good lighting is almost always going to result in a better video than a good camera with bad lighting. So either taking advantage of the natural light that you have, making sure people are placed in the right location so you're not getting blowout in the background from the sun, or even purchasing some inexpensive stand lights if you're doing some things inside. And again, when I was putting this presentation together, I was pulling up some options. You can get all three of these things for under a couple $100. So videos that you should be making, and again, this is more on the AE2S side of things. These are things that we've found a lot of success with clients. First being explainer videos, those that break down a complicated subject into something that's more understandable and digestible seem to be popular. I mean, who of us has not gone to YouTube to try and figure out how to do something, fix a lawnmower or whatever it might be. So videos explaining something tend to be pretty popular. If you're doing organizational videos or doing things to highlight your company or your organization, showing off the people and the culture, again, tends to be resonate with people better. I say that with a bit of a grain of salt because, again, it needs to be authentic or come across as authentic. If it's overly scripted, people are not going to resonate with it in the same way. So if you do have a good culture and you have an authentic culture, highlighting that tends to help people relate. And then, again, depending on what your intended goal is, testimonials still tend to get engagement, and it's really the people factor, telling their story. People like stories. They like to hear stories. So hearing the stories of people that are involved in whatever it is you're trying to promote can be successful as well. The last half of my presentation, I just have a few different free and low cost tools. Some of these things I have used, some of these things folks in our office have used. But again, I will share this presentation after the fact so you can see the links if you're unfamiliar with any of these and want to check them out. But most of these are free online resources that you can use for a variety of different communications projects and materials. The first is Canva and Visme. These are both very similar sites. Some of you may be familiar with one or the other, have used them in the past, but they are free online graphic design, presentation, document type tools that you can use. They have templates, a lot of drag and drop. You don't need to be a professional designer to be able to use these sites to create a poster or create some sort of image you want to use for social media. And you can do it very easily with minimal experience. Professional graphic designers will sometimes wrinkle their nose at these types of online sites that you can use for free, but a lot of us, if you're like me, when I was working for city government, you might be a one-man band and you might not be a graphic designer and you don't have the funds to hire a graphic designer to create a project for you. These can really create some very professional looking materials, better looking than what you could create in Word or PowerPoint or any of those. And I don't even know if people still use Publisher today, but I would say if you're using Publisher, check out one of these sites instead. It's always preferred to try to capture your own authentic photos when you can, when you have the resources, when you have the ability to do that. But we know that that's not always possible, and that you're going to need at times different stock photos, stock graphics, images that you can plug into publications or things that you're working on. These are a few examples of some free stock image sites that have really high quality professional photos. So I'd encourage you, if you're looking for stock images, you can take a look through some of these sites. The one thing I would recommend is, if you do have an image you want to use, just make sure when you click on it, most of them have a disclaimer. If they have any restrictions on how or what they can be used for, they will be listed there. And some of them do require photo credit, and will tell you how you're supposed to provide that photo credit. Not all of them do, but some do. So just make sure if you're using any of these sites and any of the images that are in these sites, you're checking any of the disclaimers on any photos you want to use before publishing them in something. This next group, these two sites are really in the vein of the Chat GPT AI stuff that is happening right now. Now, I have personally not really dug too deep into Chat GPT. I've dabbled and played with it a little bit. It's pretty crazy if you haven't used it, the stuff that it can generate for you, but don't have a lot of actual practical experience. So won't necessarily get into Chat GPT in this presentation, but these sites use similar type AI to assist with writing. And these I have used. Grammarly and WordTune can provide writing suggestions. You can write a sentence, copy and paste it, and it will give you different ways to write that same sentence. You can ask it to shorten it. You can ask it to do some different things. And it can really help if you're kind of hitting writer's block on something, or if you're looking to try to rephrase a sentence in a document or an email or for social media. It can provide different ways to craft that verbiage. These both have plugins that can be connected into Word and PowerPoint and different desktop applications. And so you can do some of that on the fly as well as you're writing things, and get some of those samples and writing examples. Another one that I use a lot is wordclouds.com. This is a free web-based application. So you literally just go to the website. We do, with our client work, we do a lot of surveys. And in those surveys, we like to ask, depending on what we're trying to get information on, for people to use their own words to describe something, words or phrases, or what 3 words would you use to, describe the community you live in, that type of thing. And I'm able to then take those survey results, copy and paste, copy the text out of those survey results, dump them into the word cloud, and the word cloud will coordinate all of the same words. It will rank them by how many times that they've been used. It will generate the size of your word cloud words based on that, and can generate an image that shows what those keywords that were asked for that question are. This site has hundreds of different shapes that you can pick from, different sizes. You can change all of your colors within it using hex code colors, or just a picker and picking which colors you want to use. But I have used this in almost every project that I've worked on since coming to A2S that has involved a survey, and really saves time when trying to dig through those open-ended type questions. It does require a little bit of quality control at the end. So if you're strictly copying and pasting, sometimes you need to go in and delete the prepositions or the conjunctions, the ands, the theys, that kind of stuff, if you want those words to get out of there, and sometimes fix some misspellings. But again, still much more time effective than trying to go through that all manually. Any other questions before I get into the very last part of my presentation? All right. So the last thing I want to talk about is guerrilla marketing. Well, okay, not this kind of guerrilla marketing, this kind of guerrilla marketing. The type where you're using unconventional and unexpected methods for promotion. These again can be extremely cost effective. They can be extremely impactful. There are tons of great examples out there if you are ever looking for ideas of ways to try to use a guerrilla marketing type technique in whatever it is you're trying to promote. Of course, if you're doing that type of marketing on non-public, well, and in public places too, ask for permission before putting anything out there. But it will really, this type of marketing gets people to stop and say, what in the heck is that? I know you can't see this, the bottom of this image on the bottom left, but this is actually for a nail salon, and it's on a post in a city, and their telephone number is on the bottom of the toenails here. So there's very inexpensive things that you can do in public settings. You can get more creative. You can try to, again, incorporate into different areas if you're able to get buy-in from those areas that will allow you to do that. But most of us, if you're, especially if you're a government entity or some sort of organization, you probably have your own real estate, and you can do some of these things on your own property, right? So the one on the left, we did some chalk painting, which did not wash off as easily as we thought it would, but did eventually wash off. But we did this in a City Hall campus. We did it at a bunch of park locations, just kind of graffiti spray painted our new brand and logo on those. The one on the right is an example of a tree tag that is talking about potential or the benefits of planting trees. So things that you could do like associated with Arbor Day, but thinking again creatively of different ways that you can utilize the space that's available to you to creatively get your message out to folks. Of course, guerrilla marketing can blow up in your face if you're not careful. I don't know if anyone on this call is or was fans or had ever seen the animated series Aqua Teen Hunger Force. It was on the Cartoon Network in the early 2000s. In fact, I think they have a new movie came out of cancellation here recently on HBO. But they had a movie coming out in 2007 that they decided to use guerrilla marketing techniques to promote. It ended up costing Turner Broadcasting and their ad agency about $2 million to reimburse for city emergency services. A lot more than they were expecting on their guerrilla marketing campaign. And I'll play a quick 2-minute video to close my presentation so you can see the story.
We can't hear it.
Oh, you can't hear the audio? I don't know.
I couldn't anyway. Could everybody else?
I wasn't able to hear it either.
No, I couldn't hear it.
It's not playing through. Interesting.
Marty,
all
when
right.
you went to share it, was there something to click about sharing your computer audio?
Let's see here.
You might have to stop sharing and start again to get that option.
Sorry about that, guys. Hold on.
Do you want to click on it one more time? I chose multiple participants can share simultaneously. So hopefully that'll.
Let's see here. Are you hearing that?
No.
All right.
Too bad.
I'll send the link to it. Anyway, the character that was in the previous slide here is one of the characters from the program. They created a light up LED display that they put up underneath bridges and on buildings and a bunch of public spaces that people thought were bombs. And the city of Boston ended up in a bomb scare for about 2 or 3 hours on this date in 2007 because of a guerrilla marketing campaign gone wrong. So again, just wanted to share that as an example of guerrilla marketing can be really effective, but you've got to be careful about what you're doing, where you're doing it, and what the perception of it might be. And that really concludes my presentation. So I'm happy to answer any questions that folks might have.
Guys, feel free to unmute yourselves and ask a question, or you could type something in the chat if you'd rather have me read it back. I thought it was marvelous, Marty. Just thank you so much for sharing this.
Yeah, thank you. Like I said, I don't pretend to be an expert in any of these areas, but have gone through a lot of trial and error on different things and have some ideas of what has worked for us in the past and what hasn't.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
This is Candace Brecky. I was just going to mention that I think if you go down to your mute on the lower left and then click the little arrow button, you can switch from your microphone to a computer. That might be a way to share your audio from that video. But otherwise, we'll just check it out.
Let's see here. All right, I'll try one more time and see if that works. So I need to go to display audio. Is that working?
No.
Was that working?
I did not hear it.
Okay. Well, we'll give it up. I'll send the link.
Thank you.
Yes, thanks, Candace, for the suggestion.
Yep.
Any
We have
other
a question
questions?
here? How effective is it to boost your Facebook page?
Boosts do increase engagement, and again, it can be done relatively inexpensively. So if you are trying to grow social media followers, it can be a good way to increase the number of people that are following your page. And you can set up a lot of different parameters where you want those boosts to show up. If there's certain demographics you want to see those boosts, certain geographic area, but it really can increase your subscribers. Now, where we found success, again, working for city government, was not necessarily if we were trying to promote a specific event at the time. Again, your boost would get that information out to more people, but if we found that if we grew our overall subscriber base, you've now got just a wider audience of people that are seeing when you do have something important to show them. But it does, boosting Facebook pages does help increase subscriber rate at a faster rate than you would organically.
Marty, do you guys ever use geofencing where they do targeted to like a location?
We did, and in fact, the Snapchat example that I provided, that was actually geofenced, so that filter was only available within the grounds of this event that was taking place. We had done that when we were doing some, I believe it was some street recon projects where we did some geofencing around some of the areas where the projects were taking place to try and have the people in that area have a better likelihood of seeing that information. So we have used that, or had used that previously in my past life.
Yeah, I just heard an example about a week or so ago where someone was talking about loan officers or real estate agents trying to target higher paid medical professionals. And so like geofencing a hospital in an urban center. Are you a doctor searching for a home loan? And people were like, oh, I am.
And really boosting and geofencing and all of those things are really about trying to push your content to the top of the Facebook algorithm, right? Like if it's you're either trying to get people who aren't seeing your page see them, or if you've got people that are already following you, make sure that that rises to the top. And again, the way that especially Facebook, but all social media platforms have their algorithms set up now, it's almost, you almost have to pay something to play if you want to make sure everybody sees everything that you're posting, which is unfortunate, but it kind of is what it is.
Yeah, otherwise you hit maybe like 2% of your
Right.
audience or something like that.
Well, any other questions for Marty? Well, thank you, Marty. I, for one, just really enjoyed this presentation, and it's everything I thought it would be and more. I feel like you just threw out a lot of great ideas for us, and some of them are even just things we've heard about or thought about in the past, but it's just they're good reminders. And I love the list of the free apps and whatnot. I know I'm always trying to get our staff here to go and share more photos of the work that they do out in the field. And, you know, when they're wading through rivers and taking water samples, and they're going out to the air monitoring stations and they get chased by a bison, probably not pull out their camera then, but, you know, so I just feel like I've got more tools, and I hope the rest of the group does too. So many, many thanks.
No, thank you. And thanks for having me and letting me present. I appreciate it.
Yeah. All right, everybody. Have a great week. Have a great rest of the week. Thanks for joining us.
Thank you.